Shalom. Call halal Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai Bahasham Rakaha Kwadash. Double honors into the apostles, double honors into the elder bishops. Salutations to all my fellow laborers doing this work in truth and sincerity, risking their lives and their freedom to do so now more so than ever. The would-be judges, the 144,000, and the scattered elect that are scattered around the four corners of the earth that be like unto the speckled bird, the Israelite foreigners, among the heathen nations that look like those heathen nations from the diaspora. This isn't a black thing, all right? And to the few Akwaf that are listening and learning to you, I say shalom. This is your brother Malcolm from the branch of the Great Millstone here in Chicago, coming at you with another lesson in truth. And, it's funny how we have that saying, you want to make Yahweh laugh, make plans. Because I actually planned on responding to some information today, which I will still, Lord's will, that was sent to me by Hadassah Abiyah, the water beloved. I will get to that information. It was some pretty good stuff that much needs to come out. But before I got to that, I got a message from the elder apostle Aram Lab. And through the spirit, I think that the apostle knew that I would be heated, that I would get angry. And I listened to like the first 12 minutes of this video. It's a 35-minute video, the one you see on the screen. The forgotten history they have hidden. And then also in the title it says dirty, J-ish secrets. Well, the biggest secret is that the J-ish are not, the people of the book. And he's giving you all this accurate history, but then he's mixing, but then he's not giving you the truth about who these people were. All right. So what I'm going to do is make the corrections that Dr. Yasir Qadhi, or Qadhi, I believe it's Qadhi, didn't give you as referring to who the Israelites are. Because remember the hijack, they used the term Jewish as a hijack to who the true Judeans were. And they also used the word Jewish, all right, as a hijack for the Israelites. All right, and then not acknowledging that the Jewish are converts from the Khazarian Empire in the 7th century. And that is not a theory, that is not hearsay. Is historical facts. It's truth. And there's way too much evidence to prove it. Okay? Way too much evidence. And the truth of the matter is that the majority of the evidence that came out on this subject matter came from other Edomites. All right. Also, he does not give the breakdown that the Christians, when they were first called that, was speaking about Israelites. The true Christian is an Israelite, and they didn't call themselves Christians. All right, which is a translation word for Hamashiach. Christ is Hamashiach, and in Greek or Latin they'll say Christ or Christos, but the word is Hamashiach, so it's a title, not a name. Right? It was the followers of the Hamashiach is who the Christians were. The followers of the Hamashiach were Israelites. And that's a very important detail that's left out when you're learning about history, when you're learning about Christianity. All right, so let me grab a scripture and then we're going to let this video play. This is going to be a series. I'll probably do, it'll be a 3 or 4 part series. This is a 35-minute video. And I want to try to do 10 to 12 minutes at a time, and then go through and break down the history and the things that he talks about and show you the receipts. But first, let's get Job 13:4. It's appropriate, when people start throwing that title doctor around, right? Because the word doctor literally means, its actual meaning, you can look it up for yourself. It means to falsify. You doctor something up, you doctor up fraudulent documents. How you would cheat on a test when you were in school. Okay, you would doctor it up. This is Job 13:4, and it says, "But ye are forgers of lies, ye are all physicians of no value." All right, so without any further ado, this doctor of no value, Dr. Yasir Qadhi.
Today we will discuss a topic that I have mentioned many times in my lectures in passing, but today we're going to shed a little bit of extra light, and it is especially relevant given the circumstances right now in Gaza and in Palestine, and that is our history as a Muslim ummah, our relationship with the Jewish people for the last 2,000 years before the creation of Israel, for the last 15 centuries. Because the fact of the matter is that it is truly sad in light of our contributions to the survival and the flourishing of these demographics that they seem to ignore and neglect all of these centuries of positive interactions. Because the fact of the matter, once again, Christian Europe treated this demographics in a very different way than we did. And
let's fix that right now. Eurasia. Okay? When you use the term Europe, people tend to begin to start thinking about, Caucasian, so-called self-proclaimed Caucasian, self-proclaimed white people who are the biblical Edomites. Okay? And Europe is in Asia. All right? And they have that term Eurasia. All right? So I'm going to show you a receipt. All right? This is I have the book, but I just screenshot it, keep it in my phone. But this is from the Winston Simplified Dictionary. Wrong definition. Encyclopedic edition with biblical references. And here we go. Oh, no, this is actually from the Oxford. All right. So it's Eurasia, Eurasian. All right. It says, definition number 1, of or pertaining to Eurasia, to Europe and Asia. So it's not 2 continents, it's only one. It's the continent of Asia. So a portion of it they started calling Europe. Considering as forming in reality one continent. All right. The great central plain of Europe and Asia. All right. So it's Asia. What they call Europe is Western Asia. What they call the Middle East is Western Asia. All right. And all of Asia was swarthy and tawny. Just like in Ben Franklin's letter from 1751. Okay. All of Asia and Africa, as he said. All right. And Europe is in Asia. Okay. And he even said Europe. He said save Britain. All right. This was according to Ben Franklin's letter, which I may just go ahead and read that portion of it. But he said that they were swarthy and tawny. And swarthy, meaning dark fleshed. And they replaced the word swarthy with black. Because black, because that, and that's basically what they've done. Because if you use the word swarthy, it would be very clear that you're talking about melanated people, dark fleshed people. But when you use the word black, it means all these other negative things: unruly, unattractive, ugly, wicked, immoral. So basically immoral, wicked, ugly, unattractive people. That's when they put that label black before anything, everything after it becomes negative. All right. So we have to make that point. That point, that's a very important point. He's saying Eurasia, and everyone listening and all his audience immediately starts thinking, or Europe starts thinking white people. And that's not true, because white people, so-called self-proclaimed white people, Europeans, Caucasians, were not in rulership from about 290, about 200 AD all the way up until 1492, basically. All right, 1492 was the last great stronghold. All right, I mean, there was still was a few swarthy people, Negro rulerships throughout different parts of Eurasia. But for the most part, collectively, they fell, and the so-called white man began to take over. And they leave this very important talking point is being almost completely omitted from history. All right. And Portugal and Spain, when they fell, which he's going to mention, when it fell, it was taken. The Moors. It was just not just Muslims. It was Moors. Moors were Israelites who turned to Islam. All right. Moors, Morenos, the Jews, Moriscos. Those were all Negros, niggers. All right. Niger. All right. Nigger just means swarthy or dark flesh. It didn't have the negative connotation that it means now. And I'll show that receipt later on. But here we go.
Multiple times in history, the Muslim Ummah and the Muslim civilization played a vital role in protecting hundreds of thousands of persecuted Jewish people. So we need to be aware of this, and we need to know our own history. And again, only so much can be said.
And see, he's showing you World War II. Once again, the people, see, this is where the fraud is coming in. Because these Jewish people that he's talking about are not the same Israelites, Judeans, House of Judah, that's going back in time. He's mixed matching now. So what he's doing, he's giving validity to these fraudulent people over there by saying that basically what he's saying is that they're the people, and they are not. So this man is, he's carrying on with the crafty council. And Ishmael is a part of that. The Hagarenes were Ishmaelites as well. All right. They were part of that crafty council that's talked about in Psalms 83, the 83rd chapter.
For the history of 15 centuries. But as you're roughly aware, we went over this in detail, this earlier part in a number of lectures. In the year 70 CE, in the time of Jesus Christ, after Jesus Christ, the second temple was destroyed. And so Judaism once again had its diaspora. They fled across the globe. So
these sons of bitches.
It's here. This is it. The federal government just come out with some new regulations that allows you to buy real estate.
Oh, this money down aggravates the hell out of me.
Didn't have a land.
When I watched that video, no commercial was in it, but I should have known that the devil was going to do what the devil does. All right. And he even threw me off, intervening.
Next 2,000 years, where were the Jewish people? Under Christian.
No, see, oh my God. Look. The people that are in the land of Israel, okay, converted during the time of Kagan Bullen. All right. They are not the same people. So you have to understand that the people in the land of Israel today are not the same. And remember, Jewish is a hijack for Israelite. You have to understand that. Okay.
And then Muslim rule. For 1,500 years before 1947, 1,400 years before 1947, where were the Jewish people? Either in Christian lands or in Muslim lands. Okay, what is the difference between how the Jewish people were treated in Christian lands versus how they were treated in Muslim lands? This is the summary we're going to be discussing today. And of course, the goal is to pique your curiosity. The goal is to start you on the journey. Obviously, in 15, 20 minutes, only so much we can do. We need to understand Christianity from its inception has been extremely intolerant of the Jewish people. Why? Because according to their theology, what did the Jewish people do to their own God, to the Son of God? Well, according to their theology, what did they do? They murdered the Son of God.
Now let's pause it right there. Now we're going to go to the scriptures. All right. We're going to go to the book of Acts. Because we're not talking about the same people. And remember, there is no difference between a true Christian and an Israelite. Because the Israelites never referred to themselves as that. The outsiders referred to them as that. All right. But let's go to Acts. In the book of Acts, when you get to Acts 2, And at the day of Pentecost, Acts 2:1, it says, and when the day of Pentecost was fully come, they were all in one accord in one place. All right. Now I'm going to jump down to verse 5. And there were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, all right. And they should have said Judeans, all right. But, but Judeans, devout men out of every nation under heaven. Why? Because of the diaspora. So they were all over Asia, Western Asia, all right. East, they were all in the East. They were all Central Asia. They were in Northern Africa, Southern Africa. They were all over. Okay. It says, and because it's just told you out of every nation under heaven. So that also is telling you too that they're not going to all look the same. All right. It says, now when this was noised abroad, the multitude came together and were confounded, because that every man heard them speak in his own language. And they were all amazed and marveled, saying to one another, behold, are not all these which speak Galileans? And how hear we every man in our own tongue? Parthians, these are the lands that they came from, all over Asia, all over Western Asia, Eastern Asia, Phrygia, Salakia, verse 9, Parthians and Medes and Elamites and dwellers of Mesopotamia and Judea and Cappadocia and Pontus and Asia, Phrygia, Pamphylia and Egypt, in the parts of Libya about Cyrene, the strangers of Rome, Jews and proselytes, Cretes and Arabians, we do hear them speak in our own tongue wonderful works of our power. All right, of our God. So this is all, and so this is everybody here, everybody that he's speaking about were Israelites that came out of those nations, that were living in those nations, in some cases looking like those people. All right, and they were all amazed and were in doubt, saying to one another, what meaneth this? Now, when we go further to Acts 11, I think it was 11 and 26. I start at 25. Then departed Barnabas and Tarsus for to seek Saul. So these are all Israelites right here. And when he had found him, he brought him unto Antioch. And it came to pass that the whole year they assembled themselves with the church and taught much people. And the disciples, who were all Israelites, were called Christians first in Antioch, because they followed the Hamashiach. All right. They believed that the Savior had returned, because that's what's happening in the book of Acts. Acts 6 and 1. And in those days, when the number of the disciples were multiplied, there arose a murmuring of the Grecians against the Hebrews, because their widows were neglected in the daily administration. Why? Because when that word Grecian there is a Hellenist, or the Hellenista, all right, which when you look the word up, there were Greek-speaking Israelites, Greek-speaking Hebrews. And so the Hebrews who were following the law, statutes, and commandments, all right, they will get being hard on the ones who are coming back. All right, that's exactly, and the same thing that goes on today. You know how Jake don't want to accept people. Like if for example, Mexicans are real funny toward Mexicans that are Issacharites that were born or lived in America for too long and then come back. Because you can hear the difference in their Spanish and in their voices. All right. Same thing with Puerto Rico. Same thing with the Virgin Islands. Same thing in Jamaica. Same thing in Haiti. All right. They treat them a little funny. All right. Now let's get one more receipt in the book of Acts, and we'll let him continue. All right. Then this is Acts 13 and 1, and it says, now They were in the church that was in Antioch, certain prophets and teachers as Barnabas and Simeon, that was called Niger, and Lucius of Cyrene and Manaen, which were brought up with Herod the Tetrarch and Saul. All right. So let me go to this receipt here from the Winston Simplified Dictionary, 1931, with biblical references. I'm going to just put it on the screen. The phonetic spelling of see that, nigger, Niger, what they refer to as Niger. And then it gives you the different spelling, Niger, black, a Negro, now usually a contemptuous or vulgar term. See, now it is. It wasn't, it was just a description in the past. All right. Any dark-skinned person, adjective, prevailing among the characteristics of American Negroes. So it really didn't become a diss or insult until the chattel slavery here in America. All right. Prior to that, it was not. It was no different from saying, oh, that dark-skinned person or that moreno. All right. Which was a description of the people that were leaving out of Portugal and Spain when it fell. Everything that was built in Portugal and Spain. All right. From the time, from about the 6th century all the way up into the fall of Granada was built by niggers, Moors, all right, crypto Jews, all right. Those were the people who were booted out and got sent into another diaspora, all right. So this guy, Dr. Yasir Qadhi, he's leaving out very important details about who's who, and he's giving this historical lesson as if the people that are in the land are now are the people that he's talking about during these different time periods, and they are not.
So from the beginning, there's a term that is found in Christian literature. I'm not inventing this term. It's called Christ killers. This is what they called the Jewish people, Christ killers. And that is why, generally speaking, in ancient Christianity, medieval Christianity, Jewish people were not treated as equal citizens. They didn't have the right to own property in most of European history. They were forced to live in special areas. The ancient term for this in Venice, the Venetian term, is still used.
Most people have no idea that the best way to make money on Amazon isn't with physical products.
In English, guess what that term is? Ghetto. That term ghetto, where does it come from? Now we use ghetto to mean what? A very poor, very impoverished part of the city. Well, it was called ghetto for the first time in Venice in the 1200s from a Venetian term to mean low class. It's literally a term that was used for Jewish people. The term ghetto in English comes from them having to live in a separate place of the city. Jewish people in Europe were prohibited from any noble profession. They had to take ignoble tasks. They were prohibited from owning land. They were prohibited from rising up in the ranks of nobility. In fact, the one job that they were not prohibited to do, and that's why they started to do this more and more, was the job that was prohibited by the church, and that is lending of money. The church said you cannot lend money on interest. And Christians, if they do so, they're going to go to hell. They're going to be damned. This is Christian law, by the way. Jewish people were exempt because they're not Christian. And they couldn't work in so many other areas. This is not anti-Semitic. I'm teaching you history. This is a fact. Jewish people then took on, by and large, in Europe, the profession of money lending, charging interest, because they weren't allowed any other job. They weren't allowed careers, and this was prohibited by the church. You'd be damned. So what did they do? They became the proto-bankers, the first bankers. And so what's going to happen, slowly but surely, they're...
Now, this part is actually talking about the Khazarians that converted, all right, because they did become the holders of the money, all right, and the lenders. So once again, he's mixing things. He's blending the two histories together, okay?
wealth did increase. This is not a anti-Semitic. It's the fact of the matter is that they were involved in this profession, and that is why rich dynasties from this group did begin to rise in the 15th, 16th, 17th centuries. But that's because they were the ones lending money. Eventually, the church had to buckle under pressure and change their law and say it is now allowed for Christians to do. Otherwise, Christians forbade Christians from lending money with interest. It was haram for them. The church would excommunicate you. That's why this group began to do this. In the 11th century, when the Crusades was announced, in 1095, 1096, the first Crusaders, they left England, they left Italy.
The Crusaders during the time that he's speaking of were Negroes, so-called Negroes, not white people. And Hollywood and this doctor are still propagating that lie. You know, all these Viking shows and King Edward and Uchid of Bebbanburg, those weren't white people. White people were serfs. They were on the bottom. And many of them were still, they were even called the wild men, living in the forest and still in the mountains, in the Caucasus Mountains, living like wild men at this time. That's the true history, which is spoken of in Job, the 30th chapter.
They left France and they made their way to Jerusalem, wanting to free, quote unquote, Jerusalem from Muslim lands. Do you know what happened before they reached Jerusalem? They started massacring Jewish people. Where? In Europe. Why? What has that got to do with Jerusalem? They began to reason, if we're going to go to Jerusalem where Jesus walked, we should avenge his death before we get there. And so, thousands, this is the first time where pogroms happened against Jewish people. Entire cities in Europe, entire cities in Germany, this is in 1096, 1097, entire cities were decimated from their Jewish populations. It is really pathetic what the Christians did. The women and children ran to the synagogues begging for freedom, and they burnt the synagogue with babies in it. They burnt it. Who? The Christians. Why? Because these are Christ killers. I say this because you need to know, where is this anger? Where is this anti-Semitic coming from? It's coming from Europe. We Muslims had nothing to do with any of this.
And this is coming from Europe after it was taken over by Esau, Edom. So some of this history that he's saying is true. Some of it is fraud. It's fraudulent. All right, because these people got, after hijacking our heritage, they fabricated a lot of history to try to make themselves fit.
This hatred, and you need to know the irony of how we can be accused when in reality.
It's hard to put into words the horrors that we've witnessed every day during our time here.
It's like every couple minutes they do this bullshit now.
This notion of anti-Semitism comes straight from Europe. In the year 1215, the church gave a decree that Jewish people could not live like normal citizens any Christian land. They had to wear a different clothing. They had to live in different places of the city. They had to have specific professions. This is the Vatican, this is the church normalizing the discrimination of Judaism. This is in 1215. Don't be surprised in a few decades, 1290, King Edward of England said, I don't want any of these people in my kingdom.
I can't take it no more. Look, wait, he's going to say something about...
So he made a decree to expel every single member of the Jewish faith from England. For 400 years, there were no Jewish people in England. 400 years. Why? Anti-Semitism. The king said, none of these people are going to be here. And Shakespeare writes his plays during this time. But the stereotype, the negative, evil stereotype remains in the psyche of Europe. Go read Shakespeare's plays. Go read.
Okay. I'm holding Shakespeare's complete works in my hand right now. All right. There's Romeo and Juliet. That work has changed. What comes after that, I think, is what comes after Romeo and Juliet. Macbeth. All right. Macbeth is after that. What comes after Macbeth? Hamlet. Prince of Denmark, These were, Shakespeare was an Israelite. He was even described as being big, tall, and dark, very dark, swarthy, dark in complexion. Now, this is Othello, the Moor of Venice. Othello, the Moor of Venice. All right. So let's look up that word more real quick. Let's go to the etymology online dictionary. Etymon, there we go. We're just gonna look up Moreno. Kill two birds with one stone. All right, and there it is. Also, a Jew or more in Spain. That's all you really need to see. A Jew or more in Spain. That was the truth part right there. All right, and so your crypto Jews, your Morenos, your Moriscos, the Sephardic, and they became the Huguenots, which spread all over Europe, which spread all over, came to the Americas, and actually helped set up the colonies. So going back to this guy, he's giving you history, but he's giving you lies, because he's giving you time periods when Esau, Edom was not the ruling class people. He's not acknowledging who the true Israelites are. And remember, when we get ready to close this session, we'll start with we'll continue where we are. We're about the 8-minute mark. So yeah, all right. So we'll pick up right here. But remember, the Lord returns to a world ruled by Edomites. All right, the Edomites will be ruling upon the return of the Lord. All right, let's go to Ezekiel real quick, 36 and 5. What he's not acknowledging, it says, "Therefore thus saith the Lord power, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen and against all Idumea." All right, Idumea is the Greek way of saying Edom. Those are the so-called white people. All right, who have appointed my land into their possession with the joy of all their hearts, with despiteful minds to cast it out for a prey. So the people over in the land of Israel are Edomites. Okay? They are not the actual Israelites. The suffix ish means to be like. Jewish is not the Israelites. Jewish is not the Jews. Dodge the hijack. Call halal Yahweh Bashim Shai Bahasham Bakakwadash. See you in the next lesson of Baba Ball.